Power Automate Approvals, building multi-stage sign-off workflows that actually work. Power Automate Approvals, building multi-stage sign-off workflows that actually work. That's what we're tackling today. If you've been wondering about Power Automate Approvals, stick around. Now, next up, why most Power Automate approvals fail in production. Most approval flows fail not because of a bug in the flow itself, but because of design decisions made before the first action was dropped into the canvas. Two failure patterns appear across almost every rebuild. The failure point here is hard-coded approver email addresses. When you assign approval actions directly to a named email rather than a dynamic lookup, the flow breaks silently the moment that person's account is disabled. The approval email goes nowhere, the request sits pending, and no one knows until someone chases it manually. The fix is dynamic approver resolution. Pull the direct manager from the action, or maintain a delegation table in Dataverse where business units define their approval chains without involving IT every time the org chart changes. Now, the 6-stage framework for building multi-stage Power Automate approvals. Each stage maps to a distinct set of decisions and configurations. Rushing through any one of them to hit a demo deadline reliably moves the problem downstream. Define the full sign-off chain in a process diagram before touching the flow designer. Document who approves at each stage, what conditions route to a different approver, and what the fallback is when the primary approver is unavailable. Common failure point: starting in the flow designer first, then discovering mid-build that the chain has conditional branches no one documented. This typically adds 3 to 5 days of rework. Now, let's talk about building an audit trail that compliance teams can use. The audit trail decision affects both what compliance teams can report on and whether your approval data can feed a broader analytics layer. Getting this wrong at stage 5 usually surfaces 6 months later during an audit. SharePoint lists work for approval prototypes but are not built for production approval data at scale. Column limits, the 5,000 item list view threshold, and the lack of proper row-level security create reporting problems the moment a compliance team runs a quarterly review. The migration from SharePoint to Dataverse for approval storage is typically a 1 to 2 week project, and the query performance improvement is immediate. The same Dataverse tables that store approval records can also feed a Power BI dashboard development project that tracks cycle times, escalation rates, and SLA compliance across departments, giving leadership visibility without any additional data pipelines. Next up, moving on to how Power Platform Governance keeps approval workflows compliant. Power Platform Governance is not just about preventing shadow IT Power Platform sprawl. It makes sure the approval workflows your business depends on are maintainable, auditable, and can be updated by the right people without creating compliance gaps. This applies whether the approval trigger comes from a Power Apps Canvas form, a Power Pages development portal, or an automated Dataverse record change. Data loss prevention policies define which connectors can coexist in a single flow. Without DLP policies, a citizen developer building a purchase approval flow could accidentally wire it to a personal OneDrive or an external SaaS connector, routing sensitive financial data outside your tenant's security boundary. Microsoft's Power Platform DLP documentation covers connector classification in detail. The DLP policies in Power Platform Guide from Q Services covers what to lock down and what to leave open for typical approval use cases. Now, moving on to when to bring in Power Automate consulting support. Some approval workflows stay simple: single-level manager approval, standard budget request below a fixed threshold. Most do not stay simple for long. The moment you add conditional routing, SLA tracking, external system integration, or compliance reporting requirements, the complexity outpaces what citizen developer tools handle reliably. A flow needs professional Power Automate consulting when it has more than 3 conditional approval stages, requires integration with an external ERP or CRM, has formal SLA requirements, or processes data subject to regulatory audit. At that point, build and maintenance complexity exceeds what a citizen developer can reliably own. Citizen developer programs need governance guardrails to prevent data silos and compliance gaps. Q Services recommends defining a clear escalation path from citizen developer builds to professional Power Platform development company engagements before these gaps surface in production. Next up, now, conclusion. Power Automate approvals that survive production share a consistent design, dynamic approver resolution, explicit timeout and escalation logic, Dataverse-backed audit records, and a governance layer that makes the flow maintainable after the developer hands it off. Skipping any of these does not simplify the build. It shifts the cost to a support ticket 2 months later. If your team is building approval workflows from scratch or fixing ones that keep breaking, Q Services delivers structured Power Automate consulting engagements covering the full lifecycle from requirements to governed handoff. See Q Services Power Automate projects to discuss your specific approval process and review completed delivery examples. For related reading, Power Automate Workflow Examples covers 10 real business use cases with setup steps, and the Power Platform Security Guide walks through how to lock down your environment before rolling approvals out to the business.